When I go talk to clients, I always start with this slide, which is I challenge them to think about your maturity as an organization when it comes to data. Many companies have done something on the left side of this slide. They're using data to reduce the cost of their operations. Maybe they're automating some basic tasks. Some companies have taken the next step to the right, which is they're modernizing their data warehouse. They're using BI tools. They're starting to rethink their approach to data. You move further to the right, you get to self-service analytics. This is where I would assert every company wants to be today. Very few are. And there's some good technical reasons for that, but I'm going to talk about how we're addressing that. And then obviously the end point, I would say, is AI, where you're actually able to build and scale new business models on the basis of AI. Most companies sit really right in the middle of this curve today. But I would challenge you, when you go back to your organization, put this up. Ask people, where do we sit today as an organization? And it might be different in some divisions or some departments, but understanding where you are is the first step towards modernizing and making progress. But every company has to move along this curve. The companies that move faster along this curve are going to be the companies that win in the next decade, would be my assertion. I mentioned before, there is no AI without IA, meaning information architecture. 81% of companies do not yet understand the data that's required for AI. This is an MIT study that was published last year. And you think about it, any data science project that you start with, you probably end up spending 90% of your time and money on, do we understand the data? Can we find the data? Can we clean the data? Does the data even make sense for the problem we're trying to solve? AI is fundamentally an information architecture problem today. Kind of go back to our core beliefs for a second. I talked about companies moving along the curve. We have really 4 beliefs of how we think data will change and modernize over the next few years. Number 1, containers are going to revolutionize the use of data. We've made big investment in Kubernetes. Recently announced a partnership with Red Hat, working with them as well. We are huge believers in containers. Containers will serve to modernize applications and data architectures in all enterprises, and it's happening incredibly fast. Second point, as clients begin to modernize applications and data, we believe that's going to happen enterprise out. And I'll admit, that is not a common view. I mean, let's be honest. Amazon's view of modernizing data is literally to send an 18-wheeler to your office and pick up all your data and move it to the public cloud. I'm skeptical. My guess is most of you have not done that, and most of you probably never will. So this notion of enterprise out, that's how data is going to modernize. I think of it as bring public cloud capabilities and services to your data, and then move your data when you want. It's a very different approach than an 18-wheeler. Automation is going to drive progress along the AI ladder that I described. The more tasks that you can automate, the more time you can spend on higher value tasks, very simply put. And fourth is believe in one architecture. There was a time where the definition of hybrid was, I'm going to take my on-prem systems, I'm going to connect them to the public cloud. That's not a great solution because it's just, it's a Band-Aid. When I think about one architecture, I think about one approach for both private and public. That goes back to our first belief around containers, because Kubernetes, for one, provides that common denominator for how you would define a platform that is multi-cloud. Multi-cloud could be private cloud behind your firewall. It could be any public cloud that you want to run on. These are our 4 beliefs for how we're thinking about data is going to evolve in the next few years. So to come back to the AI ladder concept, you can't do AI without machine learning. You can't do machine learning without analytics. Can't do analytics without the right data and information architecture. We wanted to make this really simple. And last 2 months ago, we announced IBM Cloud Private for Data. The idea was a set of containerized microservices for all your data. We can ingest 250 billion events a day. There's no technology anywhere else like that in the world. To give you an idea of comparison, the credit card industry does 250 billion transactions a year. We can do that in a day. It's really easy to get data into this system and then to work with that data in a modernized environment. But there's a catch to that, which is clients don't want to move all their data. There's some workloads where that's really appropriate, and you'll want to do that. In many cases, you want to use something like Postgres. So I want to talk about how we're doing that and why we've done this partnership with Enterprise DB. Before I get to that, one level deeper, what does it mean when I say cloud private for data? It's all the data services that you need to manage a modern data environment, all connected by a single SQL federation layer. So whether you want to work in DB2 or Postgres or Mongo, or frankly any database or data warehouse, we've got a microservice that you can easily connect to that, or you can run the data right in the system. There's data governance, ability to catalog your data. Simple analogy, what libraries do for books, we do for data. We know where all your data is. We mark that. If you've got 2 copies of the same data, we note that. We make it very simple to catalog all your data, whether it's sitting in Teradata, Oracle, IBM systems, anywhere. Public cloud X, public cloud Y, it doesn't matter. And then analyzing data. Data science is obviously becoming very real. We've kind of gone from a world of proprietary approaches to data science, where data science is now playing out in open languages. It's the world of Python, R, Scala, Java. That's how data science is playing out. But data science is only as valuable as the data that you have to train your models, which is why when we think about how you deliver a private cloud for data, it has to have access to all your data, no matter what systems it is in. Then you can train models that will be more effective based on the enterprise data that you have. Which brings us to today. IBM has a long history of a commitment to open source. I would say it really started with Linux. That was around the turn of the century. A few years ago, we made a big investment in Spark to really drive this next generation of analytical workloads. And we're really happy about our partnership with Enterprise DB and a big focus on Postgres here as we move forward. Why is that? You might be wondering, well, IBM has DB2. Isn't Postgres compete with DB2? Isn't that a problem? That's not how we think about it at all. There are all different types of workloads for how you manage data in an enterprise environment. And some workloads are perfect for Postgres. Some DB2 can do even better. But the two of them working together, that's how clients are going to build next generation data architectures. It's not about choosing a single enterprise data warehouse. I mean, how did that work out for those that did it? It didn't really work that well. For those that declared the enterprise data warehouse strategy, the day after they declared it, they started building up a bunch of different data marts, because that's what it takes to serve users. So the way that we think about this is it's providing choice, which makes it really easy for an organization to move along that AI ladder that I described. You can see the data on the right side here. This comes from Gartner. 70% of new workloads will leverage open source databases. This is not a trend. This is not a hype. This is absolutely reality today. 3 of the top 5 databases are open source, which includes Postgres, which obviously is why you guys are all here. So this is not a trend. This is not a hype. This is a reality of what next generation architectures will look like, which is why we knew it had to be ingrained in what we were doing as we went on this ambitious path towards this next generation platform idea. Let's talk about use cases. We announced Cloud Private for Data in March. We made it generally available last week, actually. And we've been oversubscribed since March. So we've been working with hundreds of clients all over the world. And we've started to see some patterns in terms of use cases. What are clients doing with this? One is there's a lot of power in a single view of all your enterprise data. If you can catalog all your enterprise data, regardless of the source, you can say, show me my customer data. And we can say, well, you've got some customer data on Azure, you've got some customer data in AWS, you've got some customer data on-premise, you've got some customer data in a Hadoop system, you've got some customer data in a Postgres system. Being able to give a client a single view of everywhere they have customer data, as one example, is incredibly powerful. Because then when it comes time for analytics, and you say, hey, I want to build a model on, take customer churn, I automatically know which data sources I'm going to use to train that model. Most organizations do not have that ability today. If they decide to build a model, they go spend the next 6 months trying to find the right data. Only half the time do they choose the right data. That's been one dominant use case, is around single view, all of your enterprise data. Accelerating your journey to AI with machine learning. We've automated a lot of the tasks that used to be really painful around things like data governance. Automating metadata creation. So think of it, if you've got an environment, heterogeneous environment, a lot of different data stores, you've made a big bet on Postgres. If you want a single metadata catalog, that's a huge manual effort. We can now create that catalog for you automatically. We've built a machine learning algorithm. We'll create business metadata. We'll create the technical metadata. It will make your Postgres environment operate with the rest of your data as a single environment. We think that's pretty powerful. Teamwork. Data science is a team sport. Another big use case has been around sharing models. I build a model to do a certain thing. I train that model. I want to be able to collaborate, share that model across my organization. Somebody brings in different data. Suddenly the model becomes a new entity. They want to share that back out. So we've made this idea of data science as a team sport fundamental to what we're doing. I've talked about modernizing your data workloads. And then compliance obviously is a huge topic right now. We're in the middle of GDPR go live, I guess I would call it. And I think it's it's interesting. Y2K had massive hype and little impact, I would say. I think GDPR is actually the inverse. There was actually very little hype. There was awareness, but not hype. And as you can see, there's already been major impact. I think 8 to 10 billion in lawsuits, I think is what I saw, that have been filed since May 28th. So as you would imagine, another big use case has been around compliance. How do I mask data, protect data, data privacy? Again, doing that across a heterogeneous base. The logos here are samples of clients that are working with us in all the areas that I've talked about, from Cloud Private to things like Postgres. Postgres is an amazing community. I think you all know that. You wouldn't be here if it wasn't. And it's something that's taking off. Because if you go back to some of the comments that I started with about we're at the start of really a new platform thought around data and modernizing data workloads, it's impossible to do something like that without Postgres. We're building an ecosystem. You can't have a platform without applications and without an ecosystem. So we focused on application development, we focused on data security, we focused on analytics, obviously on the data layer with things like Postgres and Mongo, partnerships with consulting firms. Our focus is we want to build the next enterprise platform for data. And like I said, that's going to start enterprise out. So where do we go from here? I think there's a lot of opportunities over the next few years to think about where data could go. And I think it's probably the best time, probably since the relational database was invented, to be in and around data, because the opportunities are really unlimited. We see a world, not too distant future, where we can do what I would call SQL the world. You can write a query, and you can find data anywhere in the world. Think about if you could query every device, every IoT device you had, if you're a car company or a trucking company, and use the processing power of that endpoint, and then federate that data back to a result. That's not too far away. We are going to be able to SQL the world in short order. That's going to change the nature of analytics and data. I started to think about data as a utility, where you can virtualize, provision all data instantly. I think we've made great strides on that with what we're doing around cloud private for data, but I think we're a step short of it being instant. And when I say instant, users are demanding that. I typically ask big groups, raise your hands if you have all the data you need to do your job. Still haven't had anybody raise their hand. It's a really hard problem to solve, but if we fix federation, which forever has been a performance problem, and you're using modern architectures for data, you can solve that problem. So to be able to instantly virtualize and provision data, it's not too far away. DevOps is going to come to data science, where you can basically automate on demand anything that you want to do in terms of building, training, and deploying a machine learning model. Today, data science is very much a batch process. It's one of the biggest limitations to kind of getting to an AI everywhere future. That's going to change. DevOps will come to data science and change the nature of how we build and deploy models. And then lastly is pervasive AI. Build, run, anywhere. I think the whole idea of an organization choosing a cloud, or choosing to stay on-prem, or choosing to modernize with private cloud, it's kind of a false question, in my view. The world will be defined as a multi-cloud world, which means that if I'm building AI models, I build them once, I run them anywhere. It goes back to our belief around containers that I described. That's the future for AI. It's not today, but that is certainly the future. We'd love to spend some more time with you while you're here. We've got a breakout session. We're going to go a lot deeper into what we're doing in our partnership with Enterprise DB around Postgres. So if you can join us this afternoon, we're going to go much deeper into that, give you kind of our views on the community and what we're doing to help support that. If you want to see a demonstration, this is all online. What you see there, maybe a little hard to see that screen capture. That use case I described of single view of your enterprise data, that's what it is. All the data sources listed because you asked a question about show me my customer data. A data quality score, so you know if what you're looking at is even valid, which many don't. So join us in the breakout. We'll talk a lot more about what we're doing with Postgres, and we can also jump into the demonstration. I'll leave you with a final thought. All the media hype is AI is going to take away jobs. It's going to be the end of all of us. We have a different view. AI is not going to replace managers, but I do believe that managers that use AI is going to replace managers that do not. This is an unbelievable time to be in an analytics role or a data role, because we've never had an opportunity before where you can really leapfrog anybody you're competing with and have an impact. If, and it's a big if you use the tools that are out there available to you. But there is no AI without IA, so you have to get your information architecture in shape. And I would challenge you to think about some of the beliefs I shared. Does your organization believe that? Do you believe containers are important? Do you believe the transformation, the modernization is going to happen, but it's going to happen enterprise out? Are you committed to moving along that maturity curve towards the AI ladder? And then do you really believe in one architecture? My biggest fear for clients that I work with is they're going to compound the problem, which is they're going to end up with just a different architecture spread across many different public clouds. I think one architecture is the only answer. It's the only answer that has ever worked. If you think about the history of platforms and IT, when we've standardized on an architecture, whether it was mainframes many years ago, client server, when you standardize on architecture, that's when innovation happens. When you fragment, that's when innovation slows. So we all have a unique opportunity in this time, and AI is going to be our greatest friend, at least for those of us that use it. So I want to thank you for your time and attention, and I hope you all have a great day. Thank you.